Some people are not too happy with a 90-minute Morgan-centered episode and may have felt that it was a little slow. And to be honest, at first I was a little concerned about 90 minutes of Morgan, and I was really hoping that they were going to split it somehow, be half Morgan or an hour of Morgan, and then the last 30 minutes be Alexandria, but nope, it was a full 90 minutes. But I think they really pulled it off. Yeah, most were more interested in Alexandria, the herd, Rick and Glenn's fate, but they managed to show us what great acting and writing can accomplish. Could they have put this episode at a better place? Maybe. It seemed a little bit jarring going from 3 episodes of Alexandria and the herd and Rick and Glenn and everything that's going on with them and the wolves to Morgan backstory time for 90 minutes. That was a little bit jarring, and I think they actually could have picked somewhere better to put this episode. But I think overall, it was a strong episode, and I really enjoyed it personally. With that said, I was really impressed with what they did in episode 4. Morgan's PTSD was so well handled. Morgan couldn't kill his wife, and not killing her led to his son dying. From there, he just went crazy and started clearing everything, living or dead. I will say this a million times, I love the psychology of The Walking Dead and the trauma and seeing how it affects each character differently and how the psychological effects just weigh on them and make them decide to do the things they do. Everyone is going to respond differently depending on their own experience. I just even look at your own family, like with a sibling. How we respond to murder and death and tragedy is completely different from each other because we're all individuals. And seeing those individuals, even if they're fictional, respond to this universe and have these problems, the PTSD, the nervousness, the anxiety, the becoming cracked, is one of the best parts of The Walking Dead. In Morgan's case, he just couldn't stop seeing and living through his son and wife being gone. And it took time for Eastman to bring Morgan back a bit. What made his trauma even more believable? When Eastman was bit, Morgan went back into his old kill me and clearing mindset. And for a lot of people, post-traumatic stress disorder doesn't just go away. You don't find the answer, do a little bit of martial arts, and you're cured for life. You're going to have good hours, days, weeks, maybe even years, and then something's going to trigger it, an event's going to happen, someone might say something, and then it all comes back and you have another episode. So showing that Morgan just wasn't cured. He didn't find this guy and he just brought him to the other side, and now everything's just perfect. It's not how that works, and the show was very respectful of that in that regard. However, I do feel now that Morgan knows how to get through that door or move to another room, it will be easier for him to find his way back when these episodes do happen to him. If they continue with this and we see another Morgan breakdown when something bad happens in Alexandria or with Rick's group, I will be so impressed with The Walking Dead. Eastman, this is another example about how great storytelling, compelling characters, just great writing, and fabulous actors can just make or break a character, and Eastman to me was such a great character. I was a little unsure of him at first, and by the end of the episode, I just didn't want him to die. And I know The Walking Dead has struggled a lot with this on and off. Sometimes they have been able to make us love a character in 5-10 minutes, like with Rick. Think about the very first episode. We loved Rick, we were attached to him. And then there were other characters where seasons went on and we're just like, we don't care about you, just, you died, oh no. And Fear of the Walking Dead kind of struggled from that too, where they don't always get us invested in the characters like they should be able to, but they nailed it with Eastman. If you watch The Talking Dead, they explained his name. Eastman was one of the authors of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and a guy who played Donatello in the original film actually trained both Eastman and Morgan to use a staff. The Save the Terrapins shirt was actually not a reference to Enid eating a turtle like I had thought, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but in reference to a fictional bar in Eastman's life that was being closed unfairly. So according to Scott Gimple, it had no effect on the show whatsoever. It wasn't an Easter egg, it wasn't a hint. It was just he occasionally likes to give characters little things like a hat, a shirt, that showed that they had a life before the zombie apocalypse, even if we're never going to explore that life any further. The part about the killer, Crichton Dallas Wilton, I think was a nice touch. Chris Hardwick, if you watch Talking Dead, actually thought that Eastman was the killer and that Crichton had come to the therapist, the psychoanalyst's home and murdered his family and then assumed his identity and just kept at it and then actually felt remorse or something over what he did. And then by the end of the episode, Morgan was going to go to the little graveyard and see a grave marker with the name Eastman on it and realize that the killer was Eastman, who had assumed his identity. I didn't get that vibe at all. I didn't even cross my mind that that was going to happen or was a potential. So when Chris Hardwick said that, that kind of blew me out of the water. So if you actually had that thought during the episode that, what if this is the serial killer? Then let me know what made you think that, because it never crossed my mind. When I saw Eastman and the suffering he was going through and the same suffering as Morgan and just how teary-eyed he had become when talking about post-traumatic stress disorder and losing people, he just appeared so genuine to me. But I guess that could have worked out the same with him being a killer and then finally realizing what he did was wrong. Eastman being pushed so far to kidnap the man that killed his family and watch him starve for 47 days is not something I saw coming, honestly. I didn't think Eastman had the potential. I knew that he was very sad, but I didn't realize that what part of that sadness is the darkness that he had in him and how he came back from it and realized it didn't help and it was wrong. What could have been handled better was Eastman's death. I understand why he had to die, but this is a man that survived 30 miles of walkers and has had success defending his home and goat for years. He was trained to use the staff. Why did he put himself between the walker and Morgan? He could have easily used the stick to push the walker back. It just seems insane he just stepped between the two. I really thought he died differently. And to be honest, I actually thought he was going to be sniped in the head. The entire episode, I was watching it just like, okay, someone's gonna shoot him now. Someone's gonna shoot him now. Someone's gonna shoot him now. He's gonna die, and then Morgan's gonna have to make that choice. Do I kill this person that murdered another friend of mine? Or is every life precious? And that's when we'd see more forward progression with Morgan. But it did not turn out that way, and I just feel maybe it was bad scripting how they had Eastman die. It could have been a lot better, but, you know, we're from the outside looking in after the fact. It's a lot harder to decide these things, I think, at times. After his death, we see Morgan walking down the railroad tracks towards Terminus. Luckily, we know Morgan doesn't end up there from last season. However, during the story sync, they reminded us of the Morgan church scene. At one point, Morgan does end up at Gabriel's church, and what does he place on the altar? The bullet, a chocolate bar, and the rabbit's foot, which I thought was so cool to show. The ending with Morgan and the wolf is very frustrating for me because I understand his stance on all life is precious, but you are willingly endangering the rest of the community, and something has to happen. That wolf has to get out. I don't know. I feel like there's going to be so many strikes against Morgan. He let that person get a gun, and then Rick maybe talks about it later, and then that wolf escapes. And maybe Morgan starts to realize that there needs to be a compromise. It's not, if you think about it, he couldn't kill his wife, and then his wife killed his son. Okay, he was punished for not being able to kill. And then towards the end of the episode, he did kill someone, and then he was punished for that by freaking out, and then Eastman had to step in and get bit. So whether he killed or didn't kill, it seemed there was always repercussions for it. And I'm really hoping that it gets to the point that Morgan realizes that you don't have to be a psycho killer, but at the same time, killing in this environment is a necessity to a certain degree. You don't have to be a soulless monster and just go around capping everyone, but there needs to be a compromise. Morgan needs to find that middle ground, and maybe there's going to be so many strikes against Morgan for living this Zen Jedi life that he's going to realize, okay, I need to step back and analyze this. Maybe Eastman wasn't 100% correct, and maybe my old way wasn't 100% correct. There's some midway point. Random thoughts, poor Tabitha the goat. And I really liked how Eastman told Morgan, you're going to hold a baby again. And then we saw in episode 1, Rick offered for Morgan to hold Judith, and Morgan kind of laughed and then picked her up, which I think was so adorable. And I love the things that they're kind of just weaving together even through the seasons now. They are doing such a great job of that and really just building and building and building. What are your thoughts? How did you feel about the Morgan-centered episode? Was it too much, too little, too slow? Are you just so invested in the rest of the storyline and what's going on? You can write your thoughts below. Otherwise, make sure you come back every week for Walking Dead reviews. Comics vs. Show will be this week. I am not terribly sick anymore. Besides that, we have Game of Thrones, Star Wars, and comics.